Okay, update precious metals, August 27th. So we have our full weekly candle, and we had our Fed speech. Our Powell spoke at the Jackson Hole Symposium Friday. Really, markets didn't like that. All indices down, 3% plus. And precious metals didn't do so well either. Let's start with gold. So we know we had our top on day 14. Then we still have a swing low in place on day 22, which would be really early for a daily cycle for gold. But price action does what price action is going to do, right? So could certainly be a daily cycle low. But we now got this huge bearish candle again, like totally correlated with what happened in the broader markets. So basically wiped out all of this upside. Did not necessarily take out the daily swing low just yet, but it seems like it's pretty close, right? And so again, so I'll zoom back in. So if we assume the daily cycle is still continuing and it's in decline, that was day 26. So Monday will be day 27. And if we look at the weekly chart, the more important, right? Like sometimes the daily cycle is a little murky, so you look at the weekly. Sometimes the weekly cycle is a little murky, so you look at the longer term. That's the whole point of multiple time frame analysis, looking at the different patterns together, how they correlate. And so this was a nice thrust, right? For, really 4 weeks, because this is the week that marked the low, but it was green. And then we had another 3 weeks of follow through, green follow through. And then we have this massive bearish candle, went below this low, made a swing high, right? To be clear, this candle marks the high. Once we went below the low, that marks the once we went below the low of that candle, that marks the high. That's your swing high. And now we're getting followed through this week. We closed with that. Like we closed with basically another swing high. That's important to understand, right? So we made a low below this week's low this week. And now this week we're making a low below this week's low, which means we're basically beneath multiple swing lows at this point. Not a good scenario. So that's week 5. Monday would start week 6. And so it's very possible we've started the weekly cycle decline. And this is important because this last weekly cycle ended on week 31. So it's like, and we had this close above the 10 period moving average. You can draw any trend line you want. So we definitely are in a new weekly cycle. So it's a question of, are we going to see some kind of pirouette? Like, is this going to end up holding as a higher low? It's possible, right? And really the question is, what, like, does gold, the metal itself, decouple from the market and start to act as a safe haven? I think that's the real question. We're starting to see TLT is doing that, so maybe gold will, right? And again, if you look at the monthly, just not looking great, right? We only have a few days left for this August monthly candle, but think about where that means the September candle closes. At the same time, I mean, look at this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red months in a row, just ugliness. Doesn't mean doesn't mean we can't get 6 red months in a row or even 8 red months in a row, but that really puts things in perspective for you. And we'll switch over to GDX really quickly because that one is a real dog right now. So top on day 12. So we did have a swing low in place on day 20. Unlike gold, this did not hold, right? Like notice, that's an important difference, right? We actually did get below this low. We broke that low, day 24 of the daily cycle. I'll just get rid of this actually. And so GDX continues to decline in its daily cycle. And if you look at the weekly, my God. And at this point, you can quibble like, okay, well, this isn't a weekly cycle low yet. The weekly cycle is still in decline. That's fair. Either way, we seem to be going lower in the immediate period. And now maybe you're saying, so this would be 27, week 28, week 29, week 30, right? So that's your alternative that, the weekly cycle is just still in decline, that this isn't week 20, that wasn't week 26. That would actually be your less bearish interpretation because it means maybe we can get more of a sustained bounce. We'll have to see if there's evidence of that. I think at this point, it's just more clear that it's better to stay away. And just like the gold chart, just this is monthly now, just 1 month after the next of red, and this is close, very close to making a new monthly low. It seems very unlikely we don't get there. That would be at 24.38, right? And like this is your COVID crash wick. Like that's the like, is that in play, right? Over the next, call it 6 to 12 month period. That'll be interesting. There's no way to know that. Anyone that says that they do is just kind of BSing you, right? And finally, we'll look at silver. So, silver also did not fail yet in terms of getting below this daily cycle low. And again, when I say fail, I mean hasn't demonstrated that swing low was actually a daily cycle low. It looks like it will at some point. That's day 31. And you can see last cycle ended day 44, and you get cycles that are like, this one ended on day 55. So we could easily have, a lot more days in this cycle, see any number of patterns, like maybe a move lower, and then something, any number of things could sort of unfold. And if we look at the weekly, very similar to gold, it just more mature in its cycle just by a little bit. So high on week 5 so far. This is week 6. And so it's a question of like this week, like this cycle we had a top on week 7, top on week 7, top on week 6. Now it's like, oh God, are we getting a top on week 5? This definitely tilts the odds in that favor, but anything could happen, of course. We want to be open to that. And I'll just finally really quickly look at Dixie just as a reminder, just because it's so heavily correlated with metals. Massive bullish reversal today, on its way to making a new high in the daily cycle. Today is day, what is that, 11? Yeah, so Monday will be day 12. Definitely looks like it's poised for more upside. And Monday will also be week 13. So definitely not early in the weekly cycle, so that's important to note. But also, we're still like just in the midpoint of the 3-year cycle. So we're on month 19 right now. So far, we have a high on month 18. Looks right now this is shaping up like a double top, but we have to watch and see if it sort of bursts through, which it seems like it will. And all eyes are on this level, this like, or I should say this like cluster, this area in like the 120 range, which is quite a bit of distance from here percentage wise, especially for a currency, and the world reserve currency at that. So important to watch as this goes higher, pressure on metals generally and commodities as a whole.